In the world of psychopaths, justice is no longer an ideal. It is an equation, a calculation, a number that defines whether you are a threat to society or not. It sounds clean, efficient, even safe. But when justice becomes software, when morality is filtered through algorithms, something breaks. Today, we explore how Psychopaths reveals the quiet collapse of justice under the weight of logic and the human cost of predictive punishment. At the heart of Psychopaths lies the Sybil system. It watches, it measures, it governs. Through the use of numerous surveillance drones, biometric scanners, and AI-driven assessments, it calculates a person's likelihood of committing a crime. Your mental state, stress levels, and even subconscious urges are translated into a single number, your crime coefficient. A low score means you are safe, a high score means intervention. But the disturbing brilliance of Sybil is that it intervenes before crime occurs. It judges potential, not action. On paper, this is perfect logic. Why wait for violence when you can prevent it? Why allow suffering when you can stop it mathematically? But Psychopaths shows us the cracks in this logic. Judgment becomes detached from morality. Fear and mental instability are criminalized, even without intent. Sybil does not care why your psyche is unstable. It cares only about risk management. For many, this feels like a sense of safety. But for the individuals inside the system, especially enforcers and inspectors, the world becomes a labyrinth of quiet oppression. The question shifts from, did you do wrong, to, do you have the capacity to? And in that shift, justice fractures. At the center of this crumbling ideology is Akane Tsunemori, a young inspector thrust into the suffocating logic of Sybil. She enters her role idealistic, believing in justice, rehabilitation, and the potential for human growth and development. But her encounters with Sybil test those beliefs at every turn. Akane represents the moral question haunting Psychopaths. Can humanity coexist with a system that erases moral ambiguity? Where her colleagues rely on dominators, weapons that fire only with Sybil's approval, Akane questions the ethics behind such dependence. The dominator does not judge based on evidence or circumstance. It reads your crime coefficient and acts accordingly. Pure data determines lethal force or non-lethal detainment. Akane's discomfort grows as she witnesses this in practice. Victims of trauma, people mentally destabilized by grief or injustice, are flagged as latent criminals. They are hunted not for their actions, but for their instability. She begins to see how Sybil's logic reduces complex human experiences into binary categories, threat or safe. In doing so, it strips away the humanity of individuals, ignoring context, nuance, and redemption. Yet, Akane never becomes a full rebel. She operates within the system, navigating its contradictions with growing awareness. Her journey reflects the impossibility of reform when justice itself is built on algorithms. To understand Sybil's flaws, we must look at its greatest threat, Shogo Makishima. He is charismatic, intelligent, and terrifyingly untraceable. His crime coefficient remains low, despite his clear sociopathy and manipulation. He murders, incites chaos, and destabilizes society, yet Sybil's perfect system cannot register him as a threat. Makishima exposes the weakness of logic-driven justice. The human soul, unpredictable and layered, cannot be fully quantified. He embodies the cracks within Sybil, exploiting its dependence on data while rejecting its moral framework entirely. But Makishima is not a simple villain. He questions the system's legitimacy. His violence, while unforgivable, forces society to confront uncomfortable truths. If Sybil cannot detect true danger, how can it claim authority? If justice is based on software, what happens when that software fails? His anarchistic philosophy positions him as both destroyer and prophet. He sees Sybil's control as suffocating, eroding individuality, freedom, and genuine morality. Through his rebellion, Psychopaths asks whether liberation from flawed justice requires total collapse, or whether humanity can reclaim moral responsibility without surrendering to chaos. Makishima's existence is proof that justice cannot be automated without losing its soul. His ability to evade detection reveals the system's illusion of omniscience, highlighting the human cost buried beneath Sybil's calculated peace. Psycho-Pass is littered with victims, not just of crime, but of the system itself. Ordinary people flagged as latent criminals are stripped of agency. Many are detained indefinitely, treated as irredeemable threats based solely on their psychological state. Enforcers, once ordinary citizens, become tools of the system. Their high crime coefficients condemn them to serve as hunters of their kind, never truly free, constantly monitored, and psychologically expendable. This creates a society where fear replaces justice. Citizens regulate their emotions, suppress individuality, and internalize paranoia to avoid detection. Mental instability, regardless of cause, becomes a death sentence. The system offers no room for rehabilitation, only containment. Sybil does not ask why someone suffers. It only reacts to the statistical likelihood of violence, reducing complex human suffering to numbers and categories. Over time, this erodes empathy. Inspectors like Akani face impossible moral dilemmas, caught between upholding flawed laws and witnessing the quiet destruction of human dignity. Even those tasked with enforcing justice become prisoners of the system, sacrificing their conscience for the illusion of order. The revelation of Sybil's true form shatters any remaining illusion of fairness. It is not an impartial, flawless machine. It is a collective consciousness, composed of criminal minds deemed intellectually superior. Sybil judges society while insulated from its standards. Its architects are those who, under the system's metrics, should be condemned, yet they manipulate their positions to maintain control. This revelation reframes Psycho-Pass entirely. Justice is not merely flawed through automation. It is corrupted at its core, built on self-preservation and elitism masquerading as public safety. The system's use of logic becomes a tool for dominance, not moral clarity. Predictive punishment transforms into authoritarianism, wrapped in scientific language and technological reverence. Sybil's defense is chilling. Order must be preserved, even through hypocrisy. Crime prevention requires sacrifice. Individual freedoms and moral discomfort are collateral damage in the service of stability. The lie is subtle, but pervasive. Justice, framed as data-driven and neutral, is revealed as selective, constructed, and inherently biased. Faced with Sybil's true nature, Akani confronts a bitter reality. She can reject the system entirely, as Makishima advocates, or operate within it, seeking incremental change. Her decision reflects the complexity of justice in a controlled society. Full rebellion risks chaos, but compliance perpetuates oppression. Akani chooses a third path, to hold Sybil accountable from within, exposing its flaws while protecting those she can. Her stance is not heroic in the traditional sense. It is weary, compromised, and laced with quiet resistance. She becomes a guardian of humanity's conscience, reminding society that justice cannot be reduced to algorithms, that moral responsibility cannot be outsourced to machines. Akani's refusal to fully abandon Sybil mirrors real-world struggles within flawed systems. Absolute defiance can destroy lives, but silent complicity erodes the soul. Her presence, her questions, her refusal to accept the system as infallible become acts of subtle defiance. Psycho-Pass warns of logic without humanity. A world where justice is software, morality is data, and the human soul is treated as a liability. The tyranny lies not in technology itself, but in its unchecked authority. When algorithms dictate who deserves freedom, when predictive models define worth, justice becomes mechanical, stripped of empathy, nuance, and moral reflection. The series illustrates the consequences of surrendering complexity for the sake of control. Sybil promises order but delivers repression. It eliminates crime at the cost of individuality, freedom, and truth. Society becomes sterile, efficient, and quietly terrified. People regulate themselves, not out of genuine virtue, but fear of the system's gaze. Justice breaks not with violence, but with silence, as morality is replaced by statistical management. In the end, Psycho-Pass leaves us with no easy answers. Justice is messy. It requires human judgment, fallibility, and compassion. Attempts to purify it through logic create new forms of oppression, where safety becomes control and prevention becomes punishment. Akane's journey reflects this ambiguity. She remains within the system, aware of its flaws, driven by the hope that justice must be actively maintained, not left to automation. Her resistance is not loud, but persistent, rooted in the belief that systems must serve humanity, not replace it. Psycho-Pass is not simply a dystopian thriller. It serves as a philosophical mirror, prompting us to examine our relationships with authority, technology, and morality. It reminds us that when justice becomes software, when logic rules without question, something breaks, and the cost is not measured in numbers, but in the erosion of the human soul. Justice cannot be coded, it must be lived, and sometimes to protect what is right, we must question the systems that claim to keep us safe.